Well, good morning, friends. Welcome to our worship service on this fifth Sunday of Easter. First Sunday of May, first Sunday where we're in this new hybrid state. We've got people in the room. It is so very good to see you. And we have people online, and we'll continue in this way for a while. What a beautiful day outside and in here, and I know it is in your home. It's a beautiful thing to be in God's house.
Psalm 122. I was glad when they said to me, "Let us go to the house of the Lord." Our feet have been standing within the gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem, built as a city, which is bound firmly together, in which tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, as was decreed for Israel, to give thanks to the name of the Lord. Their thrones for judgment were set, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they prosper who love you. Peace be within your walls, and security within your towers. For my brethren and companions' sake, I will say, peace be within you. For the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your good. This is the word for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Many months ago now, I did not know when this Sunday would come or what it would look like. I did decide then, though, that on this Sunday I would preach on Psalm 122. I was glad when they said unto me, "Let us go into the house of the Lord." And we are glad indeed. You know, as a child, you learn this thing. You know, here's the church, here's the steeple, open the door. Oops, no people. Fix it. Here's the church, here's the steeple, open the door, and there are the people. And they're always wiggling around having a good time together, and there it's great. For over a year, it's been here's the church, here's the steeple, and no people. But you have hung in there. You have tuned in online. Some of you are tuning in online. We're back together. We're going to continue online. I think about something really powerful. You can't believe how much I have missed you being here with me. But some of the most powerful things that I've heard during this year, a young mom with a bunch of children told me one time that she's closer to God than she's ever been because kids are making her crazy during the day. She finally gets them down to bed Sunday night. She watches the service at her leisure. She said, "I'm closer to God than I've ever been." And we've had people join our church from other cities, other states, other countries. God's blessed us during this time. I wondered how it would feel for us to come back in this sanctuary. I knew it would be great. The idea that kept coming to my mind, I kept thinking about my father. He died during this pandemic, not from COVID, but during this season. I thought about when he was 18 years old. He grew up out here in Oakboro, North Carolina, about an hour east of here. And when he was 18 years old, he signed up for the Army Air Corps and went off to fight with the Americans in Europe. He got shot down over Europe, and he didn't like to talk about it like many veterans, you know, but I wonder what was that like? Like when he was on the ground, did he think, will I ever get home? And when he finally was able to come home when the war had ended, you know, we didn't have great phone service and internet and all of this. In my mind, I imagine that he just showed up at home one day and walked to the door. His parents were there, and the joy was just intense. Overwhelming. The psalm says, I was glad when they said unto me, "Let us go into the house of the Lord." Our feet have been standing within your gates. Look down at your feet, folks. A couple of you aren't obeying me. Look down at your feet. If you're at home, look down at your feet. Your feet are standing within the gates of the house of the Lord. Let me explain how this works. There's a miracle involved in this that you may not have thought about it. It's a miracle. We all find ourselves in a miracle. If you're in this room, or if you're watching from home, or if you're watching later tonight after you have put your kids down to bed. We are all part of a virtual miracle, and here's how it works. Like, what we believe is that when we come here, it's not like, oh, this is interesting. What happens when we come here, it's a miracle. You see, this psalm was originally sung by pilgrims. They lived in dark, gray, dreary towns where nothing was colorful or fabulous. There was no beautiful architecture. They had grinding labor. They never heard live music. But when the pilgrimage time came, they would walk those dusty roads and they would find their way to Jerusalem. On the way, they would sing, "I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord." And when they came over that hill, it's now called Mount Scopus, you get your first view of the temple. You can imagine that they fell on their knees and wept for joy. The miracle is that we are one with them. God is some miracle of transportation across time and space, and we are one with them. When Mary and Joseph peered into that manger, it's not just appeared, it's they peer, and we are with them, with the baby Jesus, God in the flesh, in that manger. When Jesus was at home, working with his Father, hard labor, we're there with them. They're in Nazareth. When Jesus and the disciples made their way to Jerusalem on those dusty roads, and they sang, "I was glad when they said unto me," the disciples didn't understand what was going to happen there. Jesus did, that he would suffer and die for us. On Good Friday, we sing, "Were you there when they crucified my Lord?" The answer, weirdly, because of this miracle, is yes. It's always virtual. We always have a virtual presence in the life and in the heart of God. I love that miracle. I love that miracle. The psalm says, I thought about this week, "I was glad when they said unto me." Who's the they? Who said, "Let us go into the house of the Lord"? When I was a child, it was my grandparents. I would go to visit them in the summer. And they would say, "Let us go into the house of the Lord." They were the they. And I have to say, I was not glad. The psalm said, "I was glad when they said unto me." I was not glad. I wanted to stay home and play. The church they went to, it was hot in the summertime. They didn't have air conditioning. And the preacher scared the daylights out of me. He did hellfire and damnation, and I went home mortified. And so I was not glad when they said unto me, "Let us go into the house of the Lord." However, the people that said to me, "Let us go into the house of the Lord," they were pretty amazing. My grandparents, I noticed, after we got home from church and through the rest of the week, the songs that we'd sung in church, my grandmother would hum or whistle those same songs while she was going about her chores, while she was cooking a meal for us. I watched my grandparents in that church. This was an amazing thing. They closed their eyes. But when their eyes were closed, they seemed to be seeing something, even though their eyes were closed. I remember thinking, I want to see what they see when they're in the house of the Lord with their eyes closed. This theologian Amos Wilder said, "Going to church is like being in the chamber next to an atomic oven. There are invisible rays and you keep your watch outside." There are invisible rays in this place. God knew that we would need a special place dedicated to the worship of God. Just the kind of thing that we need. Other spaces are fine. If you go to work, though, it's not going to make you think much about God. There are workstations and to-do lists. That's how it is at work. If you go to a restaurant, it's great to be back in restaurants, isn't it? And you look, they've got a TV screen, and they've got liquor bottles and wine all up there. It's good. It's fine. It's good. In this place, everything is different. God knew we would need a place. This is a place of mercy. I'm not sure your workplace is a place of mercy. Some people share with me that their home is not a place of mercy. This is a place of mercy. This is a place of healing. Where else are you going to go to get your soul healed, to get your mind healed? This is a place where we'll tell you what you don't hear anywhere else in the world, that is, you are enough. The world always says you aren't enough. You don't have enough. You haven't done enough. You probably just aren't enough. But when you come in this place, we say, you're enough. You are enough. This is a place that is not freaked out by anxiety. Out in the world, we've got all this anxiety, but you come in here, we're not freaked out by that. We welcome that. This is a place that is not freaked out by suffering and death. Everywhere else in the world is terrified of suffering death, but in this place we welcome it, we embrace it. We have symbols in this room that you don't find at a restaurant or at your workplace, and maybe not even at your home. We light candles. Candles are amazing. Candles say to us there is light in the darkness. Try it in a really dark room sometime. Just light a candle. That one small flicker can banish darkness from the whole room. In this room, we have the symbol of the cross. You don't see that anywhere else. Man being executed because his love for us is so overwhelming. God's love poured out for us, for forgiveness, for salvation, for hope. God one with us in whatever abandonment or pain that we suffer. We have in our church these beautiful Gothic arches. The people that built this building, they just had such genius. We are such debtors to them. These Gothic arches, it draws your attention upward, right? You live your lives down here like, oh, we're down here on earth, but these arches draw our minds upward toward God. And if you look carefully, you can't actually see it. When they designed this building, there are all kinds of details that are up high. You can't quite make them out. Small little details. I read something one time about medieval cathedrals. In medieval cathedrals, some of the most fabulous artwork you can't see. It's up too high for the human eye to capture, or it's up in the attics, places they knew no one would ever go. Why did they expend energy on works of art in the attics of the medieval cathedrals? And the reason is it was for God. It was not for the entertainment of the spectators down below. It was for God. What we do here is for God. I remember my mind being blown when I went to seminary. And we read this Danish philosopher named Søren Kierkegaard. And Kierkegaard said, we get worship wrong. He said, we think out there, like you're the audience and we're the show up here on stage. He said, that's incorrect. He said, in worship, we're the show and the audience is God. God is looking down at us, here, at home, now. And God is so pleased that we're doing this. God is so honored that we are doing this. God is like the parent who does what I had to do so many times when my kids were little. You go to that endless ballet recital, and you're at the ballet recital, and then your little girl comes out, and she does an échappée, and they gallop around. It's so wonderful for that moment. It's just so wonderful. And God looks at each one of us like that parent looking at the little ballerina. And God is so delighted that we're doing this. How do we come into the house of the Lord? One year, Lisa and I were on vacation down in Beaufort, South Carolina, and Sunday came. I'm married. Lisa's a churchgoer. They just go to church. I'd give it a rest for a Sunday because I'm here all the time. Anyway, so so I didn't really prepare for church. We're out walking. It's Sunday morning. It's church time. She's kind of making me feel a little guilty, maybe. I don't know. And we come upon this really pretty church. So I say, oh, let's go. We'll just go. It'll be fine. So we get to the door, and the usher is there. And I said, is it time for service to start? And he said, yes. He looked me up and down. He said, but if I were you, I'd go home and put on a coat and tie and come back next Sunday. Which I did not do, understandably. I would contrast that with something amazing that happened at the Davidson church. People were coming in one Sunday, and I was talking to one of our greeters by the door, and a guy opened the door, and he looked like, I don't know if he was homeless or what. He hadn't a shower, changed clothes in a week or two. And he stuck his head in, and he asked her, he said, what's the dress code in here? And she said, exactly what you are wearing. It's church. I was glad when they said unto me, who's the they? The they are the voices that speak to you to come to this place. The they is your brokenness. The they is your woundedness. The they are your dreams, your yearnings. The they are the hollow place that you feel inside. That is God saying to you, let us go into the house of the Lord. The brokenness and craziness of the world, that is the voice saying, let us go into the house of the Lord. This is the place of hope. This is the place where God dwells, and it's to go out to everyone else. We do things here that are Amazing. We close our eyes and we see. On many Sundays, we stand in line. If you have communion, you stand in a line. Ash Wednesday, you stand in a line, come up and get ashes on your head. I love Martin Sheen, the actor, says, is his favorite part of church is when people are in line. He said, you feel like you're going somewhere? He says, I don't understand it all. It's a mystery. It's so beautiful, but I just know, like, I'm with those guys. I'm with those guys. I was glad when they said unto me. We sing in church. Most people don't sing anywhere else. Every now and then I'm in traffic, I'll see somebody next to me singing. I want to roll down the window and say, let's sing together. This will be fun. Singing. You may sing in the shower. I don't know. We come to church. Can't do it now. We don't all have these fancy choir masks, but trying to figure out how to do it soon. My favorite part of our service, I have to tell you, is when it's over. And I stand on here and I pronounce the benediction, and then I look at you guys and you sing Lift High the Cross. Nobody's fumbling for a book. Nobody's getting their purse organized to get out the door. We sing Lift High the Cross, the love of Christ. Proclaim. It's a beautiful thing. Here's the last thing. The psalm says, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Our feet have been standing within your gates. And then it adds this. It talks about the tribes that go up and that they are bound firmly together. I love that. The tribes go up and they are bound firmly together, and they're bound firmly together by God. You see, the Israelites came from all over the place, and these tribes, they weren't like, toy soldiers that were all identical to one another. The tribes, they had their tensions among themselves. They were kind of distant kin, but yet some say would have wars with each other. You never knew the tribes, but they would come, and when they would come into the house of the Lord, it says that they were bound firmly together by God. We come together from all over the place. And the people who come to this place have different political ideologies. We have different teams that we cheer for, although I am on a lifelong quest to make everybody a Duke fan. Not working yet, but someday. You never know. We have our divergent views on things. But in this place, the tribes are bound firmly together by God. You know what's the most important symbol in this room? It's the table. Every church has a table. And the point of the table is that we're a family, and we sit around God's table, and there's always room for more. My grandmother, she was amazing. My grandparents were dirt poor, and my grandmother would scrape food together to feed us, but there was always room for one more. She'd learned there was a worker down the street, a cousin who had dropped by, anybody, and she would just say, come on in for dinner. At their little table, we'd get kind of wedged together, and you took a little less, but there was always room for one more. There is always room for one more. Nobody's excluded. We don't hurt anybody. We don't judge anybody. You don't have to, and you're no good at it anyway. We don't exclude anybody from our Lord's table. I was traveling in Scotland a few years ago and with a buddy, and we were at a place on the north coast called John O'Groats, and we're in a pub there, and there's a guy next to me. I can tell he's wanting to chat me up, so finally I'm like, all right, let's talk. We chatted a little bit, and I said, I've told some of you this story before, it's great. I said, what do you do for a living? He said, I'm a shepherd. I was like, I'm a pastor. We talk about shepherds. Tell me about being a shepherd. So he's telling me all this. It's great. And finally I said, this is an interesting thing. I've seen shepherds at work in Scotland and in Israel and in Turkey, lots of places. I said, why is it you have goats and sheep and goats, and you never just see a flock of sheep, and you never just see a flock of goats? It's always sheep and goats. Why is it sheep and goats? He thought about it, and he said, I'm not really sure. He said, but we have just found they're better together. They're better together. We are better together. And we come into God's holy house, and it's not once it's over that we're done. It continues. The psalm speaks of blessing, praying for the peace of Jerusalem. It used that Hebrew word shalom, which doesn't mean hi or bye. Shalom means peace. It is a blessing. Last Sunday, I hope you saw it. We do this beautiful thing every year. We bring our high school seniors in, and the parents come up, and the parents wrap a blanket around their senior who's about to leave home, and they say words to each other. And sometimes they have the hardest time making eye contact because we're not used to doing these things. They look at each other and they say things like, I love you. You have meant the world to me. Thank you for all you have done for me. You will always be in my heart. You have been patient with me when it has been hard. I will always be with you. What they're doing there is they are blessing each other. And it shouldn't be an unusual activity. This is what God calls us to do today, tomorrow, all the time. It's to bless other people. No need to judge them or criticize them. We're called to bless. We come into this place. I was glad when this Sunday came. You could not ask for a more beautiful day outside, but most certainly in here and certainly online. I was glad when they said, let us come into this house. There are invisible rays here you can see with your eyes closed in this place. We've got candles. We've got a cross. We come into this place and we are blessed. And we are blessed so that when we go out, we can bless. And then we come back next week to be blessed, to go out again and to bless. I was glad. I am glad. Thanks be to God.